Welcome back to Uncover Your Magic. When we look back at our childhood and reflect on the memories, it's interesting to see what memories really stand out. I find that when I look back, I think, are they the happy ones or not the happy ones? I find myself just wondering what ones are the ones that made me have my limiting beliefs or the certain things that I think or believe in that have really shaped my life. As a parent of two girls, I've had an awareness during their entire childhood because I started much later having children and had 20 years of personal development under my belt. I knew what I wanted to instill in my girls to equip them for a life that they could live with the tools to give them the utmost confidence and the awareness of their values and beliefs. They know their values and then they can make their right decisions. And now at 12 and 15, I see the fruit of my labor. I feel confident as a mother when they are away from me that I have taught them the consequences and the benefits of the correct choices. Life is a series of choices we make. And as a child, it's so important to show our children what happens when we make the wrong choices versus the right ones. I'm getting ready to start this week my Raising Confidence course, where I teach kids my 6-step magical formula. And I actually have an adult version called the Magic Path, where I teach the same 8-week course, but in an adult way. These courses are built on the tools I believe are crucial for kids to learn while they live under your roof. Can you imagine the feeling when they leave for college at 18 or whatever they choose to do, that they know their core values, they know how to get clarity and focus on their goals and take action, and have a solid morning routine that will ensure confidence and self-worth? I know if I was listening to this, there would be no doubt I would want my kids to have this knowledge so I could worry a little less than I would otherwise. So if you are interested in enrolling either your child or yourself, you still have time this week. If not, email me at ashleygoner@gmail.com and I'll put you on the wait list for the next round. They are 8 weeks one-on-one coaching programs. Check out the details on my website at ashleygoner.com. I am on a mission to transform and empower as many kids as I can. That is my passion. So now on to our episode today with Mike Kemski. I learned about Mike through a podcast I listened to one morning. His story of his childhood will blow you away. He struck a chord in me. When I heard his tough childhood and how he figured out a way to overcome his obstacles and make them his message is so powerful. You will learn so much from this episode. You will need a notebook to take notes. He is the author of the best-selling book called The 11 Principles and the creator of the Power Life Success Systems, and so much more. The value of this episode is amazing. I want Mike to explain his journey and where he is now, because coming from him will be so impactful to you and the way you view your life. You are going to enjoy this episode, so let's get started. So please welcome Mike Kemski to the show. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to have you here. And in the intro, I explained how I had learned from you through a podcast I listened to, and then I go down this rabbit hole and learn more about you. And then you get to come on the podcast, and I'm so excited to share your story. And, I look at life as it's our story, especially when we get to our age where we look back at our childhood and we look at what are my limiting beliefs that I had, or what are things that happened, or the memories that happened in my life that really shaped the person who I am now, or what are things that I've been able to overcome and make my little thing a message. So when I look at you, I look at what I've learned about you that I want you to share with my listeners, your childhood, and the message that you are now sharing, 30, 40 years later, that you figured out how to do it on your own. And that's what I find so inspiring to me, because usually there's these kids that grew up and, didn't have the tools that you didn't, kind of were lost, drifting. And that's why I'm so focused on my passion is teaching these kids these tools so they're not out drifting. but you figured it out. And I want you to go there. And then, when we think of this path that we're on and the breadcrumbs that we pick, and sometimes I always say the yellow brick road, and, we veer off to the right, but then we figure out a way to come back, and how you've led your life and how you've figured out your yellow brick road and all the little things on the whys come in life. They're choices. Life is all about choices. And, when you make the choices and when you listen to your inner voice and when you have your values and all those things. But take us back to my Mike at what, 14 years old, or whatever you want. When you
14, let's start at 12.
Okay, 12, because my daughter Presley's 12. So let's go
Yeah,
there because I can
12,
relate.
12 is when I found drugs and alcohol, actually. Um, Prior to that, there was just a life of, there's no love, no support, no money. It was abusive. It was hostile. It wasn't a good environment. Um, and I was and still am, but I like have this big tough shell, so you can't tell. But I'm a very sensitive, very connected person, very connected to nature, somewhat fragile, actually, powerful but fragile, because I'm so sensitive. And I was that way as a little boy. And I used to play with bugs and make these little bug families because I didn't have a family and I wanted to have a family. So I made these bug families and all this fun stuff. And over time, being in that environment, as it does, you listen to these things long enough, like, what's this show rated? It's for kids. I'll keep it clean. Okay, so
Oh, yes.
as you do when you grow up and you hear things from people like your parents and people who are mentors or whatever, leaders, church, school, whatever it might be, you believe them when you're a kid. And when you hear you're a piece of crap and you're worthless and you're stupid and you're nothing and you're blah 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 your whole life, that's what you believe about yourself. And that's so intuitively, even at that age, you kind of know that's not true, but there's so much going on with the wiring and development of your systems at that point that you kind of adopt that as truth. And it causes pain, a lot of pain, and there's fear, and there's so much stuff that's very constrictive and contracted that you can't really expand into your full self, and you can't live in that light and that love and that stuff that makes us feel good about life and about ourselves. And so the pain kept just building and building and building. And at 12 years old, I found drugs and alcohol. And I'm like, oh my God, this is magic stuff, man. This stuff makes all my pain go away. This
Oh
stuff's
my
amazing.
gosh.
And so I started drinking and doing drugs at 12 because it worked. It worked. It worked until it didn't, right? And so at that point, I started to go retreat into the darkness more because I had to survive. It was tough. And being as sensitive and as loving as I was, not having what I need and my needs met and being fed that, it was just torturous for me as a kid. And the drugs and alcohol helped until they didn't. And that was 3 months before my 17th birthday. I checked myself into rehab. That's a whole different story, but the point about this and the significance of this is to tell people and to let people understand that it doesn't matter what happened to you in your life. I was not programmed to be happy or be successful or have love in my life, even have a family. My highest dream, my biggest dream was to have a family, which I've done, and that's all good. But it doesn't matter where you're starting. Those things can be changed. Those things can be adjusted and recalibrated, so you can start to live from your power and not from this very, very dim, dark place where a lot of people exist, where they're lost. They're lost in
Right.
the darkness, and they just can't see any way out of it. So, which I was there, and even after rehab, I was there. I have this dramatic. What changed me was a dramatic event that is kind of crazy, but really what set me on my path to figure this out was that event when I was 18, after I've been sober for 2 years. But it's important to understand that it doesn't matter where kids are at or where we're at as adults or anything like that. If it's something that doesn't feel good to you, if it doesn't feel right to you, because everybody knows, everybody feels this thing inside of them. Everybody has something, some passion, some ambition, some desire, something that they want to express, and that's blocked oftentimes by all these. That's why I love the title of this, because that magic, their magic, the magic's inside of them,
Yes.
but it's just blocked with all these layers of paint and soot and shields and all this stuff that we
Right.
develop to protect ourselves. It's not like it's a bad thing, they're not bad people. It's just we need to protect ourselves from some of this abuse and this stuff, because we don't understand that like what we actually are, which is like I say it all the time to my people, like you're the power. It's not you have the power, you are the
Right.
power. Everything
Right.
comes through you, goes through you. So it's an amazing process to watch this. It's an honor and privilege to be able to help people get to that point in their life. And I did it myself in the trenches of life, and it took me a long time, but I did it. I didn't know there were people like me, like you, at that point in time in my life. So I just kind of poked sticks at stuff and lifted up rocks and bored. What's under here? What does that do? What does this do? And just kind of
Yeah.
figured it out.
I guess what's like amazing to me is at 16, and someone who 12 years old starts drugs and alcohol, you really have this epiphany one day, like, I need to go to rehab. Like, what? That just doesn't, you don't even have parents that are telling you to do that. You're begging them for like a signature or something because they wouldn't let
Yeah.
you in.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, what? I
Yeah.
mean, seriously,
Yeah.
tell me that, because where is that mindset?
It was whatever people call it, all kinds of things. I don't know. I don't profess to know what it was, but I was in my room. I was looking around, and there was just beer cans and soda cans and beer bottles full of cigarette butts and just trash and drug paraphernalia. And it was just a dirty, icky, gross environment. And I'm looking around and I'm like, man, and I was just lost and I was confused and I was scared. The drugs stopped working, the alcohol stopped working. So that now I have all this problem with drugs and alcohol, plus all the pain in my life that wasn't resolved or taken care of. So I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, this is it got too much. And so I just love watching TV and whatever. How do you exit this planet? How do you do this? And I'm like, a razor blade, right? A razor blade, that does it. So I went and got a razor blade and I stuck it in my wrist, and
Oh,
I'm listening to Metallica Sanitarium over and over and over again, just like, what am I going to do? And I was just done. So I put this, and this is like the first episode. This isn't even the dramatic one. I put this razor blade in my wrist, and I dug in there and pierced the skin, and everything went silent. And I was like, okay, this is weird. I mean, I couldn't hear Metallica. Everything went silent, and this kind of peace filled my soul, my heart, my body, whatever. And it's not like I heard the mic blow, like a voice like that, but there was a voice. It was my voice, because I mean, when you talk to yourself, you hear your voice. So I might have been talking to myself. I don't profess to know what this was. People say it's God, it's whatever. I don't know. So I'm not going to act like I do. But what I do know is my experience, and it said, Mike, this is not what your life is meant to be. I know you don't know what love feels like, but this is what it's like. And my body flooded with this crazy amount of power and energy that I've
yeah.
only felt when I had my daughter. If you have kids, you understand that. Oh my God, that magic, whatever that is, man. If you've had a kid, you understand. If you don't, you probably won't. But my body filled with that. And I remember when I had my kid, I was like, this is the same thing I felt. Wow, this is
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
amazing. So I felt, I mean, because that love for your children, unconditional love, right? And it's instant. And so
Yeah.
I felt that. And I'm like, whoa. And it said, this is what love feels like. And you'll find this serving man and women, but mankind, humanity, basically.
Right.
But the word was man, so I just repeated as that. And I'm like, wow, what is this? And then then I felt the blood trickling down my hand, and it brought me back to where I was at. And all of a sudden, here's Metallica, here's this my
Oh
reality.
my gosh.
And I'm like, what? And I'm crying now, and I'm like, oh my God. So I pull the razor blade out, and I got a little blood trickling down my hand, and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I need help. I need help. I can't do this. And I felt that. Now there's like empirical evidence, or at least experiential evidence, that something else is there. And I've known this my whole life, but it was so trapped and so like just contained in that darkness, and that shielded place in my heart that nobody was getting to anymore. No way, man. You guys all hurt me. I'm shelled up, you know,
Right.
but that was exposed for a minute. And I'm like, I need help. So I called this lady, like, not a lady, the nurse, Sheila. And this poor lady, she answered the phone. She's like, Davis Hospital Recovery Center. This is Sheila. Can I help you? And I'm like, click. And I kept hanging up. I'm 16. I'm scared to death. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I'm just like, so I kept calling this poor lady back, and she answered the phone times. She's like, are you going to talk to me? I'm like, yes. It just scared me. And so I said, yes. And then she's, we started to talk, and she said, yeah, this is an adult court ordered rehab. People come here to not go to prison, or after prison, they have to come here to serve their thing or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. I need help? She goes, yeah, your parents have to sign you in. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go,
Oh
I
my
walk up the
gosh.
stairs, and my mom's watching QVC. It's funny to me now, but she's watching a home shopping channel.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
gosh.
Mom, I need to talk to you. She's like, what do you want? She got all like bitter about it, pissed off. I'm watching TV. Gee, damn it. I'm going to try to not swear, but I mean, and so then I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I just called this hospital. I got a drug problem, and I need help, and I need to go into rehab, but I need someone to sign me in. She's like, call your dad. God damn it. I'm watching QVC. And I'm like, Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I didn't want to call him. I did not want to call him. So I call him, and he's at work. He's in the military, and he lived up there for a few days at a time. And I call him, and he answered the phone. He didn't always answer the phone. He's like, Master Sergeant Kemski. And I'm like, oh, Dad, what do you want? And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm terrified, right? I mean, I'm like 16. I'm scared to death. This is hard. And he's like, and I'm
Wow.
like, Dad, I just called this rehab. I got a drug problem. I need some help. He goes, quit being an effing pussy, and hung up on me. And I'm like,
Huh.
uh, what do I do now? Right? I'm like, well, I'll do what any resourceful drug addict would do, and I'll lie. So I went, I went and
Oh,
told my mom. I said, because she never got her license. I knew they wouldn't communicate. They were miserable and all that. And I'm like, Dad said for me to take you to the hospital for you to sign me in. And she got all kind of bent out of shape because she had to stop watching QVC.
oh my
And so
gosh.
I drove myself and her to the rehab, and I talked to the counselors. They interviewed me, and they said, we have a bed. And I'm like, I don't, that's it. I want it. Like, well, you have to know this. I'm like, I don't care what it is. I'll take the bed. I don't care. And so I checked myself into rehab at 16 years old, and I went through their program and got off drugs and alcohol. And it's been an ongoing thing since. So it's been a long time, 30 plus years. But yeah, that's how I ended up going to rehab.
But when you turn 18 and you have the moment where you want to end your life and you're sober, I
Yeah,
guess I
I'm
was
sober at that time.
confused at that
Yeah,
time. Okay.
I'm
Huh.
sober at that time. Yeah, 2 years sober. Yep. Yep.
So what are you doing from when you're out of rehab until you get to that pinnacle moment?
Everything they told me to do. And this is another thing too. It's like we can listen to experts and gurus and guides and mentors, whatever, but it's most important to listen to yourself. And that voice can be really quiet sometimes for a lot of people. It was quiet for me. It was so quiet I could barely hear it, but I did everything they told me to do. I went to the meetings, I went to the aftercare thing, and I went to these little Al-Anon support group, all these different things. And I did that for, a couple of years. And finally I went to a meeting and I looked around. I'm like, you know what, man, there's more to life than coming here like 2 or 3 times a week, drinking 12 pots of coffee, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, and bitching about life. There's
Right.
more, there's more to life than this. This is cool. It's a good support for a stepping stone to get away from that, to be a transitional point to your next thing. But
Right.
there's more than this, right? So I was like, I'm out of here. They're like, you're gonna die, you're gonna relapse, we're gonna find you in the gutter, you're gonna go to jail. I'm the only one that stayed sober. The
Oh
only
my
one.
gosh.
It's crazy.
Wow.
I'm the only one that stayed sober.
Huh.
And so,
And it
and
wasn't a struggle. You knew it. It wasn't a struggle to stay sober.
no, it was no. I mean, there were times it was sometimes challenging, but I knew the drugs and alcohol didn't work anymore, and I was looking for what was there, that feeling that I got. Like what? How do I get this? What is this stuff? So it wasn't really all that hard. It was a little bit tough at first, but no,
Huh.
not really. It was because it was a decision, and once you make a decision and you commit to that, everything starts to become a resource in your favor if you look at life that way. So I had a lot of support in terms of like nature and life, not really so people. All my friends started drinking and doing drugs again, so I was kind of like, okay, I'm the odd man out. But
That's what I was going to ask you. You like a friend system. Was there you had a support system around you,
no,
your family, you're
at,
living with your mom and dad and they're in their own world and you're kind of in your own world?
at that point I wasn't living with them. But no, I mean, my support system was my girlfriend at the time and my counselor, and they hooked up and started having sex behind my back. So I got
Oh my
betrayed by
gosh.
both of them, the only two people I really trusted. I'm like, oh my God, now what? And
Huh.
that was kind of like one of the things where I'm like, I just at that point I felt so alone and so lost and so afraid and so hurt, and just, I mean, the lowest point a human being can be is where I got. And I just kind of like didn't, I was like, man, I've done everything they told me to do. I've done the meetings, I've done the steps, I've done all this stuff. My life is not changing. I still don't see any future for myself. I don't see me having a family. I don't see me having love in my life. I don't see me having success. I'm still just as screwed up as I was back then, but I just don't have drugs and alcohol anymore.
Hmm.
And now I don't have anybody in my life. I'm like, I have no one to lean on or whatever, because some of these people in these meetings and stuff, man, they were more depressing than going out and hanging out with people who were doing drugs and drinking. It
Right, I
was,
bet.
yeah, I was just like, come on, man. And so that led me to that point where, the gun episode where I ended up, and I'm not going to tell the whole story. I'll tell a little bit of it, but I mean, people can go watch the video. That's why I recorded a video, so I don't have to go through it a
Right.
hundred times. But yeah, I mean, I was living I was just kind of like hopping around, and I was living in a friend's basement. And his mom got deployed to the military, and they were people house sitting. They were avid hunters, so they had all kinds of guns, all kinds of stuff. And long story way shorter, I'll just say I ended up on sitting on the bed, And I was just thinking about everything, confused, scared, alone. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, man, nothing works. And I started crying. I put my hands in my face in my hands and my elbows on my knees, and I hunched over. I just started like crying my face off. And under the bed was a 357 Magnum. And I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? I grabbed it, I picked it up, and I literally
Mm.
said to myself, if this is life, I want my money back. This is bullshit. Why would anybody want to live like this? I did everything they told me to do. All the experts and the mentors and the guides, I did everything they told me to do. Nothing's changing. And in fact, it's gotten worse because I still have the pain, but then people that I love and trust betray me. And I mean, it was just a chaos, a vortex of confusion and chaos and chemical shitstorm going on inside of me.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do. And so I pulled the hammer back on the gun and I put it in my mouth, and I'm shaking, and the barrel's cold and it tastes like gunpowder. And it was very, very, very dramatic. And I'm like crying my face off. I'm sobbing. I got snot leaking out my nose. I'm just a
Wow.
mess. And I'm trembling, and I'm like, man, this is how bad my self-esteem was. I said, if you do this, someone's gonna have to clean up your brains off the back of the wall.
Mm.
You are a piece of shit. Your dad was right. And I'm like, wow, that's so, it makes me sad to think anybody could be that bad, but
Right.
it was where I was at.
Wow.
And so I had a loaded gun in my mouth thinking those kinds of thoughts.
Hmm.
Man. And so I'm in a chipper mood today, so I probably won't get emotional and cry. So that's good. But but I'm sitting there with this
Oh.
gun in my mouth, and I start thinking, man, I can't live like 50 more years like this, or 50 more days, or 50 more minutes, 50 more seconds. And I literally asked, like, if this is what life is, why the hell would anybody want this?
Mhm.
This is sucks. This is terrible.
Hmm.
And so I'm squeezing this trigger, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I don't know what's happening right now. And I'm squeezing the trigger just really lightly. And then bam, the hammer drops, and I'm like, my eyes open. I pull the gun out, and I'm in shock. And I'm like, am I dead? I've never been dead before. I don't know what being dead's like. Maybe I'm dead. I don't know what happened. So I
Right.
feel my head, and I'm like, everything seems intact, but maybe this is part of being dead. I don't know. And I realized what happened. I looked
Huh.
at the gun, and the primer on the bullet misfired, or it didn't misfire. The primer on the bullet was defective, so the bullet didn't fire. So I
Oh,
threw
wow.
the gun and I scurried away from it. And I hit my head on the back of the wall. So
Oh
now
my
my head
gosh.
hurts. Yeah. And I was trembling in this,
Wow.
just, I mean, uncontrollable, as you can imagine. I mean, it was overloaded with all kinds of stuff. And when I got enough composure to stand up, I just started walking. And I don't know how long it was. I don't know time or how far I walked, but because I wasn't even there. I was just like, it was just like, that's all I could process
Right.
at the time. And I got to the point where they used to have old billboards on the highway with old incandescent lights that shine up on them, and they get all
Hmm.
crusty and gross and like orange looking because they're all dirty.
Right.
And I see this light and this orange hue of this light, and I look up, and it gave me a focal point. It gave me something to look at, till all this energy could be like condensed into a focal
Huh.
point, so I could focus for a second and get my composure. And I looked up at that light, and I did. I got focused and I got present, and I'm like, and I literally looked around. I was in some ghetto place where I lived, but I looked around. I'm like, no, Mike, everything you want in life is out there. Success, happiness, fulfillment, joy, all wonder, adventure, family, love, toys, everything that you want is out there, because you know it because you see people have it. So if
Right.
it's out there, why can't you get it? I'm like, I was dealt a bad hand, maybe, whatever, but who cares? Why can't you get it? So I literally took a physical step to the side, looked over at my shadow, my echo, and I said, you just killed the guy that pulled that trigger, and you gave birth to this man.
Ah.
Who is he? I don't know. I'm the same asshole I was 5 seconds ago, but but I made a decision. I'm going to go out in this world, and I'm going to figure out how my mind works, how my heart works, how my body, how I work as a human being. How do I how do I get that feeling back? How do I find this stuff? What do I do? How do we work as human beings? And that was the beginning of the unfolding of the Power Life principles. I started just to go through the world and look at things and poke around at things, and just, I mean, I got so self-aware. It was
Huh.
exhausting, but very beneficial, and it unfolded that. And then, and obviously that worked, and I've transformed my life since then and helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people do the same thing all around the world. But that was the turning point to me. It's not something I ever would suggest or recommend to anybody, of course, but to me, it was figure it out or die. And
Right.
I wasn't ready to die. I wasn't able to die at that point in time anyway. So I'm like, I'll just figure it out. And I went on this massive quest to learn how we work without all the crazy fluff and extra sugar and all this stuff. It's very like, this is it. It had to be simple, or it
Right.
wouldn't have worked for me, because I was just not, I don't have the capacity to process all this complicated crap. It was just too much for me at the time.
But
But
what do
that's
you
what
do at that place? Like, where are you going to go to read books? Are you going to watch videos? How are you
Nope.
doing
I didn't
your
even know that
research?
existed. I didn't even know that existed. I had no idea that there were books and people that did this stuff. I had no idea. So what I did, I literally just like, okay, I'm focused on me. And I started off just doing like one thing was I was at a job interview at Dairy Queen. And I was so nervous because I was like, I'm such a piece of crap. I'm worthless. I'm not going to get it. I mean, just making hamburgers for God's sake. I'm not like curing cancer or something, but I was so stressed out because I had such a low self-esteem. I was like, and I'm pacing back and forth in this lobby, just back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And I get so like uptight that I go into a boxer stance. And I worked out on bags in rehab to get out my aggression and anger
Huh.
and just process my energy, physically expressing it through working out on punching bags, heavy
Hmm.
bags and speed bags. And I got in this boxer stance and I'm like, why do I feel better? I just started to notice, like, I feel a little more confident when I do this. I'm like, wait a minute. So I put my hands down. I'm sketching out again. I'm freaked out. I'm scared. I'm a loser. Hands back up, boxer stance, powerful position. I'm like, what the hell is this? And there's a word for this. I know what it is now, but at the time I didn't know. And so I was like, okay, cool. I got the job and I went home and I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, can you really control how you feel just by like your stance and your body? So I look in the mirror and I'm like, hey, get mad, because I'm really good at being mad. It's like a powerful defense mechanism for me. So I look in the mirror, I'm getting all mad and I'm growling at
Right.
myself. Within seconds, I'm like, I want to fight somebody. I'm just like angry. I'm like, I ask, and I'm like, whoa. I back up. I'm like, what? Why am I mad? There's no one in here but me. I'm legitimately like pissed off. My head's hot. I'm sweating. I'm like, got my face all crunched up. I'm legitimately pissed off right now. I'm mad. I'm angry. Why? This is weird. I'm like, I try happy and I sucked at being happy. I was terrible at being happy because I didn't know how to do it. I rarely smiled. And so I look in the mirror and I make this stupid ass smile, like, and I'm like, you're a dumbass. This is so awkward. What are you doing? You're stupid. And this is all going on. And the other part of me is like, shut up and keep doing it. Like, okay. So
Oh,
I'm
funny.
fighting myself to try to be happy.
Huh.
And it probably took like 45 seconds. And I'm like, I started laughing and I'm like, I'm actually happy for no reason. What the hell is this? I'm like, you're a wizard, dude. You just figured out the mysteries of life.
Oh,
That was the
funny.
first step to realize, like, wait a minute. And that led me into a very introspective place to where I literally for a year picked apart every single word, every thought that I could be aware that I was thinking. When I was aware of it and I'd make myself aware of it more, I would pick it apart. Like, I'm hungry. What does that mean? I am. What's that? It's a conjunction for what? For I am. What's I? I's Mike. What's Mike? And I drilled down everything until I
Huh.
figured out where I would know my body. Like I would feel something in my solar plexus or in my head or in my arm or whatever. And I'm like, okay, there's stuff associated with this. And I just went into this dive into myself, completely into myself. Exhausting, but well worth it. And I became so self-aware of all this stuff. And during that process, I started to realize, like, wait a minute, principle one in the power principles, highest energy wins. I started to realize, like, the second I stopped giving this stuff attention, something else starts to happen and my
Right.
thoughts start to go someplace else. And then from that point, everything else that follows that, my heart starts to feel this way, either fear or anger or whatever. And my actions start to mirror that and to support those feelings. But if I go back over here, and so I just started saying, okay, so give all of your attention, your highest energy to what you actually want. And it's simple, but man, is it not easy. It takes it's just like working out. You got to do rep after rep after rep after rep until it just becomes not a
Right. A
new way of
muscle.
living,
Right.
but just the way of life for you,
Right. I tell the girls my part of my morning routine is you have to smile before you get out of bed. It just reminded me of that because I said, even if you're not happy, just smile because it's telling your brain you're happy. Yeah. And then look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you are amazing. I am all of your affirmations, even if you don't feel it, just say it because you're gonna it's coming and it's becoming this program in your mind where you're starting to believe it, and then the parents in the house will say, oh my gosh, the energy's so different in this house. They come up and they're happy and I don't know what they're doing, and before they come to breakfast, and I said, oh, it's working. But it works. That's how our house rolls. But it's so true when you
Yeah,
have your
no,
mind and how you're so clear on what works in the happy place and how you can change it quick when you
yeah,
have it as a
yeah,
muscle.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And another, that's kudos to you, by the way, because people like take these simple things as just like they're rudimentary and they're just not simple. They're not complex or powerful enough to make a change. Bull crap. Yes, they are. When you smile, even if you don't feel it, it's recalibrating your brain, and you start to produce different chemicals. And so
Right.
this biochemical reaction is happening whether you know it or not. And you continue to do that, your cells divide and they go, I need more of that stuff. And it becomes a habit over time. And then you start to actually feel it. And then the energy shifts, and everybody can feel that. No one, people don't know what the hell is going on half the time, but they're like, what's changed? Well, nothing. I'm smiling more. That's
Right.
one of my things every day is if I don't go out in this world and make at least one person smile, I feel like I
Hmm.
failed at life that day.
Yes. Oh,
Because
I that is so important. I make the girls give 5 compliments a day, and they have had to do that since they could talk. And they always would say, well, they don't react back, or they don't tell me something back. And I said, that's not why you're doing it.
exactly.
You are doing it for you to make them feel good. That is all it is. And to learn
Yeah.
how to give, learn how
Yep.
to look out, be the person that gives the love, and not looking for it to come back. But they can't go anywhere without saying at Target, your hair looks beautiful. I love your earrings. It's just been a muscle, you know?
That does so much for people too. And it's, what's cool about it, like, you can't give what you don't have. So when you start to generate within yourself
Mm-hmm.
these processes and the effects it has on your body, when you give love, guess what, you win twice, because you have to have it to give it. So the more you
Yes.
give it, the more you are automatically generating it. And then the more you generate it, the easier it is. It becomes like your capacity for it expands, and then you have more and more and more of that. That's why giving is so important, because it opens up your muscles and your capacity to receive more of that, whether it's from an external source or from yourself. It doesn't matter. When you love somebody, you give love, you have to create it in yourself first to give it.
Yes. I love
So
that.
it's so important to understand like what's happening. Most people are looking out there like, I'm waiting for my gifts from the universe to receive this. You are the
Right.
power. Like, you're the one generating this stuff. And what happens is you generate it, you give it out. There's like this boomerang effect. It's principle 9 in the power principles, and it touches people's lives. Somewhere along the way, you do this enough, you make a ripple effect that blankets the globe. And someone along the way is going to be like, you know what, I'm buying that person's coffee because
Mm-hmm.
someone smiled at me, because someone did that to me. And it comes back to where it's somehow linked to everybody who's doing this kind of stuff. And we don't get to see it. We can't like really say, well, it's because I was nice to that person and complimented them on their shoes that I got a free hamburger today. Who knows? Nobody knows. It's like, I have the mysteries figured. No one knows. You can't track that. That's insane to even try to. But just if you watch your life and observe it, you'll see it happening more and more and more. So
Right.
we don't need to figure it out. Just do it and watch what happens. Observe it, and then just take it, because it changes your life, because it's elevating humanity to some degree, and you
Right.
are part of humanity, right?
When you put number one as the energy, the highest energy wins, why is that number one? Is it just where that you thought that was the most important of the
every
principles?
Because everything filters back down to that. Everything. I mean, you are the creator of your life. You're the creator of your thoughts. You're the generator of your thoughts. You're the generator of your energy. There's this ambient energy we live in that's actually, it's insane. There's enough energy in a cubic meter of the stuff we live in to boil all of the Earth's oceans. That's what
Hmm.
feeds life to us. That's what feeds life to life. This ambient energy. It's neutral. It's not biased. It's just energy.
Right.
Then it comes into your systems, in your mental system first, and then you alchemize it and you do all your weird stuff, and you make drama and you make the things and meaning and all this stuff, and like, that person sucks, this is ugly, whatever it is, you do all your
Right.
stuff. That person's great, this is amazing, whatever you do, you put your own special sauce in it, and your own psychosis
Meaning.
that most
Right.
of people meaning, whatever it is. And then that starts the process of creation. It starts at what I teach in the energy triad, like your mind creates your life, your heart fuels it, your body builds it, but your mind, you have to create something in your mind first. Everything goes through that, and you have to have some sort of target, something to point it at, or it's just like taking the sun and going, yeah, it's a lot of light, but if you take a magnifying glass and put it down on the ground and you condense that focus of the sun's light, it can burn stuff from clear out there in the space. So when you have a target, it narrows your focus enough to where your energy becomes more potent. Then at that point, highest energy wins. And this is very important. I have to say this, because people in this space like, highest frequency wins, love always wins. I'm sorry to burst people's bubble. That's not the case. It doesn't always win. And it's not about frequency. Frequency is like bass and treble. Treble is a fast frequency, a high frequency. Bass is low. But which one are you going to hear if you have the volume on the bass at 10 and the volume on the treble at 0? You're not going to hear the treble at all. People
Right.
think like it's frequency. It's not. Energy is two components. It's frequency and amplitude. amplitude is what you turn up the volume of the stuff by giving it attention, by expressing it, by taking it from inside here, putting it out into the world through painting, through art, through words, through music, through building, through destroying, through whatever you do to do this. That's the expression of that energy. And the more that you focus on that, highest energy wins always. That will become the predominant thing in your life, and everything else will start to become a resource to support that.
Right.
Because there's nothing new here. Like people are like, I'm gonna everything's already here. Like everything you touch came from this earth.
Right.
The clothes you wear, the computer you work on, everything, it came from this earth, right? So it's all already here. So we get the gift of going and putting the puzzle together. Like, what can I make? I can put Diet Coke and Mentos together and make propulsion, whatever, those kinds of things. But so it's not like we're actually waiting for stuff to be delivered. We have this gift of being able to create with what we already have. And that's the only resources we actually have. So when you focus your highest energy on whatever it is, it's either going to move you away from that or towards that. And
Right.
all of it, everything filters back down to that, because it all comes back down to your three primary energy systems: your mental and your emotional and your physical. Those three things, that circuit has to be connected in order to activate your power, which then goes into the whole attraction principle. But it's definitely something that everything filters back down through. So it's always number one. Just that one principle alone, people, when they grasp that, because it is complex for some people, like, I don't get it. But then when they do, they're like, oh my God, I get this. And then their whole life changes just from one principle alone. So it's
yeah. But you know what they always say, where your focus goes, energy flows, and all that stuff. But I always think of it as like your reticular activating system in your brain. Is that what you like? When with the girls, I do another trick in the car, we'll pick something, and there could be a million red Mustangs, right? But we never seen one until our focus is, let's count how many red Mustangs we're going to find, right? And all of a sudden there's a million, but they've always been there. It's like the story of the butterfly and your daughter, that kind of thing. Is that what you mean? Like where you put is that what you mean? Or is that more of a perspective in your mind?
It's both. Your perspectives are going to reveal to you what is already there. If you're looking for that thing, exactly what you're talking about, you can pass by 1,000 yellow flowers and not even see them until you like, I wonder if there's a yellow flower. Boom, then you'll see it, right? The perspective is more about what you want that to mean. And so a yellow flower can mean like it's a sign. It's a sign from Narnia, whatever. It could be that that a yellow seed fell there. Who knows? But yeah, the reticular activating system, that's just, if you do that on purpose, you're opening that pathway for that information to come in, because we can't. I mean, there's no way we could process all the data that we see every day. So when you like make a focus on it, then yes, that's all you're going to see. When you start, like, here's, I don't know if you heard this before, but the donut thing, like people like, the people like, okay, smart guy, tell me how I can use a dozen donuts to lose weight. I'm like, okay, that's easy. So I'm like, go get you a box of Krispy Kreme donuts, open those gooey bastards up. They're delicious. They smell good. Oh my God, they look delicious. Oh, they're fascinating. They're wonderful. Grab one out of that box and don't eat it. Run to the furthest garbage can you can find. I don't care if it's the school parking lot 5 blocks away. Slam dunk that thing in there like with some victorious symbolic gesture of victory. Run back and do that 11 more times. You just use a dozen donuts to help you lose weight. That's the power of perspectives. You can make things mean and serve you and be a resource to you however you want them to be. This is part of what we teach in the power manifesting method. But the highest energy wins. Yes, it comes down to what you're actually like focused on letting into your system and stopping what comes in there. Not even stopping it. You don't need to stop anything. Power perspective makes it so all the stuff that comes in, you can twist it around and change it to where it's something that serves you as a resource. Dog crap, rocks. People like dog crap. I'm like, yeah. People started these businesses picking up dog poop in people's yards. That now became $1 million business for people. Rocks, the guy in the 80s with the pet rock. He's like, I need to make money. Posted some googly eyes on this thing or pasted them on there, drew a smiley face, made over $1 million selling rocks. Things aren't just what they are. They become what you need them to be as resources when you're focused on a target, which is what highest energy wins would be. It's about focus. It's about narrowing your focus to something that you want in life. Right.
So in your, in the second one, it's duality. Will you explain that? You don't need to go through all of them, but I was listening to something and it was fascinating.
Yeah, duality is pretty simple. And I've had conversations with, like, one of my friends has a PhD in enlightenment from Harvard. and he talks about non-dualistic state. I'm like, get out of here with that, dude. You can't have that, not as a human being, because the core of duality is like, man, people are they'll interpret this however they want to, but everybody knows there's something inside of them, even if they're like whatever, atheist, agnostic, not religious, whatever. You can feel stuff. You like have intuition. You have this. What the hell is that? Well, it's my brain. Yeah, but it's something that you can't see. So there's the core of duality is like spirit human duality. There's this dance. There's this harmonious dance of having this body, this physical spacesuit that allows you to go through this life and experience what a strawberry tastes like, what the electricity from a kiss feels like, what, all of these different things through the biochemical reactions. But what that's doing in my experience, and I don't have any way to prove this, but just from experience and watching this in life and feeling it myself, it's feeding your soul. So and when that's fed, and your like default energy signature is getting what it needs, whatever it might be for you, it's different for everybody. You feel full and you feel whole and complete. So duality is very simple. We live in a world governed and capsuled in this capsule of duality. I mean, that's how it is. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
You can't have good without bad. People always say, shun the negative. Personal development, self-help, shun the negative, only positive thoughts. And I always tell them the same thing. Go and hook your negative terminal from your car battery and tell me how good your car works.
Right.
It's a circuit. You have to have both to have either. So when you realize that and you're no longer afraid of part of life, then you can actually use it to empower yourself to actually get more power, or activate more of your own power, so you can build your life with it. But duality is just it's a simple concept. It can muddy the waters a little bit because it can get really complicated for people, but it's not. It's just, you have to have both to have either. If you have one thing, that's how I changed my entire life, is this duality exercise. I went through, and I mean, because it's easy to look at your life and go, here's all the things that suck. Like when you have a broken finger and a scratch and a painful blister or something, that's what you're focused on because it's painful. So it takes way less energy to focus on the things that you don't like, because they're like going screaming at you like, hey, we need to change something here. So you list out all the things that suck, and then you go, okay, I don't like being overweight. I don't like being low energy. I don't like being unconfident or meek or shy. I don't like being broke. Cool. What's the heads to the tails of that? Boom. Now you have that. It's very simple. It's so simplistic. People like, no, like, yeah, trust me, for 30 years, I've watched this work. And then you go, what's the opposite of that? Now you have a target, something to focus on. So the problem has done its job, but you have to have both without either. The problem is a box that the solution lives inside of. It's just, it's not something to be afraid of. There's so many people that are like so terrified to even think about anything that might be considered negative. But if you look at how energy works, and what everything in this universe is energy. And what are you? You're an energy system. You're a couple of them, but a few of them smashed together in this body. And you understand that you have to have negative and positive for the energy to actually flow, for it to move. Then you realize negative is not something to be afraid of. It's not something that's going to destroy you. It is a component that expands your awareness about what you actually want. That's when that energy starts moving. Then you can use both to create your life. And you kind of have to. There's so many people trapped in this whole, what do they call it? Toxic positivity.
Right.
And they're miserable. They have these weird, like, happy face stickers. Everything's great. I just stepped in dog poop. It's fine. Like, it's not fine. No one likes stepping in dog poop. It sucks. It's okay. It's okay that it's not okay. It's funny. People get trapped in this. I've seen people trapped in this cycle. I call it a spiritual addiction. And they get trapped in this for sometimes decades. And they're good people, and they want to help. They want to elevate the world, and they're great people, but they just get stuck in this process where all they're looking for is the stuff that always feels good. That's always good. Positive. And even
so they're putting everything under the cart. The negative things are all like, they ignore. So they're not having that duality to charge them to get to the next level.
And their systems start to break down because they're not being used. So they start to atrophy. That's what happens, So duality is just, I mean, that we live in a world government, and it's beautiful, because if you think about like what everything is, like the singularity of energy, if you take everything and make it this big, only the light and the love, and you make everything like this big flood of this beautiful, white, bright, calm, peaceful, soft, white light, and everything becomes that. If you've ever lived in a winter state, you understand what happens.
Right.
Everything stops existing. It's a whiteout. There's no contrast. Duality creates contrast. And we need that contrast. We need the shadows and the depth and the different things to be able to make things out. So if you do it on the light side, you have only light, no darkness. It's all one shade. There's nothing. Nothing.
Right.
Same thing on the dark. I mean, because nature's a self-correcting system. It won't let you get too far on either side. You expand too much, you start to get pain because you're losing touch with connection with humanity. You're losing connection with humanity. That's what life's about, is connection and love, and that kind of like love, and not Disney love, but like connection love. And so then on the other side, the darkness, if you retreat too far on that, the constrictive aspect of that causes so much pain that you have to, it forces you out of that cave. So you go back into this. Nature kind of handles it for us. So we don't have to do anything, because the
Right.
pain is what makes us move. Unless you ignore the pain so much that because it's negative, then you just end up like ceasing to exist. But duality is great, because if it's a singularity, if it's just white or just dark or whatever, I mean, these are simple terms, but when you put all that into a capsule of duality, and you can stretch that energy into this spectrum, man, that's when we have like the ability, because everything slows down, like the
Right.
frequency of that light so fast that it's just one thing. But when you can slow it down, then we can see colors, and we can feel different emotions, and we can have moments together, and experiences, and presence, and tasting, and we can live a rich, full human life, which in my opinion is the most spiritual thing you can do, because it's feeding your spiritual being exactly what it wants and needs, which is why it inhabits this body. So
Right.
duality is just, it's a simple concept, but it really is beautiful when you look at it. And people try to transcend that shit. They're like, I'm going to transcend duality, I'm going to become enlightened. But that doesn't mean you transcend duality.
Right.
It
No,
means you embrace it. It means you
right.
embrace it. That's what it means.
When you talk about love and fear, because I look at the same kind of the similar way, and you come from, you're either coming from love or you're coming from fear, but your way of like, I always have heard the false evidence appearing real, but you have the different acronym for that.
Mhm.
What is it?
For fear,
Yeah.
focus energy at results.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that before. Go
Focus
there on
energy.
the, tell
I
me
made it
about
up.
that.
That's why.
I know. I just like, God,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I need to remember that.
Focus energy at results. There's a reason for that. Fear has function. There's no, here's the thing, everybody listening, guys, girls, whatever, there's no errors. If you feel something, or you think something, or something's happening, and you're experiencing some sensation, you don't make errors. There's a reason for that. All of it has function, and it's helping to guide you back to this place of where you're in your creation zone. Because that's, again, people freak out when I say this, everyone has the same purpose. Gasp. How dare you say that? My purpose is unique. No, it's not. Everyone has the same purpose. Like, well, what is it? If you look at the human specimen, the human being, we're built to create. We start off with procreation, to keep making babies and keep going, right? But we're built to create. That's everyone's purpose. What you create and that experience, very unique and individual to every single person. But the
Mm-hmm.
purpose at the core itself is the same. And all of these things have function to help support you in living on purpose, living from your purpose. Because when you're doing that, you can't be depressed. You can feel stress, which is fine. Stress builds muscle. That resistance builds muscles, mental, emotional, physical, whatever. But you can't be depressed. You can't be apathetic. You can't. Well, not when you're creating. It's not possible, because you're living on purpose. So those things, the apathy and the depression are signals saying you need to move back into creation. It causes pain, so you move. But the whole thing about fear, all that it does is its function is to make you aware, like, I'm not focusing on what I want in this world anymore. I'm focusing on what I don't want. I don't want to be bit by that snake. Okay, focus energy at results. What do you want? I want to be safe from the snake. Good. Take a step back. Don't be freaked out and panic and like act like a lunatic and climb a tree and break your arm because there's a snake. Just focus energy at results that you want to have. And results in that case might be, the fear might be saying, I don't want to get bit by that snake. So just back up a little bit. Or most people like, I'm afraid, I'm whatever. And then they panic, and then they end up getting bit by the snake because they're pissing the snake off, because they're like freaking out. The snake's like, I'm just trying to have a sandwich. You'd leave me alone. You know,
Right.
it's all,
Tell
yeah.
me, I'm going on a whole different thing because I want to get this in before we end, but with your wife and your children, and I know you've been married for upper 20s years with her. What
24,
is 20, how many? 24?
24, yeah.
24 years. And what was that journey? And how did you, like, coming from a family where you didn't have that marriage to look at of your mom and dad? How did you figure that out? And then have children, and what did you do to to teach them what you know? Did you make that sure, like for me, like it was like when I turned 38, 37, and 40 is when I had my kids. And it was like I knew the tools that I wanted to make sure they had in their minds before they left at 18. Like it was like so ingrained in me because I'd done so much work. But is that where where you were at when you met your wife and then ventured into having a family and now a grandbaby?
Yeah, she's amazing. The no, I mean, when I first got married, I mean, it wasn't. I wanted a family. That's my biggest dream in my life, was to have a family, and so that became true, obviously. But you know, it wasn't like structured or planned. I again, because like how do you? It took me a long time to be able to teach any of this stuff. Because how do you teach something you don't actually learn? Like I didn't learn it, right? I did it. So it wasn't like, here's the mechanics, here's A, B, and C. I was like, I don't know, man. I poked a stick and some shit happened. I don't know what the hell it is. It took me years to even name
Huh.
these things, right? I had no idea. I didn't know they didn't like, here's the power life principles. It was like, nope, here's me living my life experientially. And when I did this happened, and I just kind of simplified it down over time. With my kids, and my wife too, but with my kids mostly, I showed them by example. And I would talk to them at different times in their life, but mostly I just let them live. And I told them all the time, I still tell them, like, don't try to be like me, be you. Don't even for one second think you need to be anything like me. If there's things that you admire about me, then yeah, you can model that stuff, but do what makes your heart light up. And then I say, go live, go fall down, go make mistakes. I'm not gonna arm you with all the armor and shields and swords and everything. But what they didn't know was I was kind of a helicopter dad, and I kind of like sat back, but I sat back. They didn't know I was doing this. I sat back and I observed very carefully, and they went through some really hard stuff. And I
Hmm.
sat there and I watched, and I'm just waiting. There were times I needed to interject and help them and kind of lift them up and elevate them a bit. But mostly I just let them fall off the bike and like get back up on their own. And then I would encourage them, you know, when they come, like, get back on the bike, back on the bike. And then I talk to him about some of the power life principles, and the way I just talk like that naturally. It's not like I'm trying to, it's just what I am. So it's just like
Right,
whenever I
right.
talk, that's what comes out. So it's just like, so they naturally got that. And
That's
both of them
funny.
got tattoos on the of say highest energy wins. Both
They
of my kids.
did? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. But you think of having a dad like you and they're girls and you want, I grew up there. I'm three girls. I'm one of three girls. And I remember my dad and, you know, and I have two girls. So thinking of my husband with the girls, but also knowing so important to build them to be the place where they are worthy and they have this as a raising girls for sure is about, for me anyway, looking at them like I want them to have this self-worth that just exudes, that they know they can be, do, or have anything. They have this power and it's them, they're the power like you talk about.
Yep.
And raising that and raising your girls and giving them that, knowing that you're there as a dad, like I could just see you looking at them and observing and, wanting to say something, but just letting them do their thing and fall and make mistakes. And, I've heard stories where their dads are like, did you make a mistake today? Like they wanted to like, I want to celebrate the mistakes because you
Yeah.
took action and maybe it didn't work.
Exactly.
Right. That's what I
Exactly.
love.
Living life. Yeah. And definitely the love that they have and had growing up, it amplified their confidence a lot, because I know I didn't have that. So I was like, you know, they had some advantages that way. And you're exactly right, especially being girls. I mean, I know people are all weird with this whole thing these days, but girls have it different than boys. At the core of it, we're all the power, but out in the world, like I watch how my daughters get treated. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what the, what is this? Because I don't think like that, but you know, they have to have a little bit of extra, I think, confidence and strength in many areas of life, because they're women now, but because of that, which is kind of sad in a way, but at the same time, it's like, it's also an opportunity for you to strengthen those muscles and be a badass,
Right.
and they have, you know, it's
Right.
amazing. They're amazing. They're absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's so great. Do they live close by?
One lives here. One just moved to Utah. So yeah, one
Oh,
lives. My youngest daughter still lives here.
okay. And Utah's, I love the story about the butterfly and your daughter about how she wanted
Yeah.
to come home and
Yeah.
oh, it's so cute because I do that with the girl. We do every day. We have to find a magic moment and it's a lot of it's butterflies. And I have this butterfly thing lately. And today I saw one, I thought of you because I know I was coming to see, or we were going to see each other on Zoom. But when people have the perspective, and looking at things instead of thinking that that butterfly had to fly around, and it had to be living, but it was still snowing and there's no way, Dad, I'm going to find a butterfly. It's like, really? Is there going to be one on a, card or a, whatever,
Yeah,
a
shower curtain, a plate, a
shower
napkin.
curtain? Yeah.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. If you start looking for them, they're all over the place. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. And so when you have all this, you're building these principles, this business as you are really on this journey of your life. You're like learning as you go, and you're keeping a mental note of all of these things that are working for you and that you realize that is part of like life and being a human and experiencing duality and love and all the things that work. And now you get to a point where you're like, I think I'm going to put a put a book together, or I think I'm going to put a program. How do you get to that place? Because people are coming to you and you should do this or what?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's again the principle of attraction. Like I've lived this way, like without thinking about it, because it wasn't something that I actually like kind of learned through a book. I actually became that person, which is great for me because it's like it validates everything. This is just how we work, man. I'm telling you, I've been through the ringer. I know this. But then someone came to me and wanted to be friends and the whole story. And he's like, and he was a marketer, and he's like, dude, you have to write a book. I'm like, what do you mean write a book? I don't know what, I'm not writing, I don't know how to write a book. It's like, you have to write a book. I'll market it. We'll do all this. I'm like, okay. So I wrote the book, and as soon as that hit, it went global before social media. In like 3 months, we were global, and there were like, there were movie studios calling to make a movie about my story and all this crazy stuff. And at the
Huh.
time I was just like, yeah, go ahead. I was new to business and stuff. I was so naive. I'm like, yeah, this is great. I had people come in wanting to license my training to like 2,000-3,000 people in like their organizations and stuff. I'm like, did you buy it? Well, then apply principle 11, pass the torch. What do you need all this stuff for? And they're like, are you stupid? I'm like, maybe, but still, that's how this works. So it
So
was it
funny.
was an interesting journey. But yeah, it happened because part of it was because I needed to do this, but people started coming to me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. And then someone said, you need to write a book. And that whole thing kind of unfolded from there.
Huh. But during the time of you doing all this like inward work, are you working? How are you making
Yeah,
a?
yeah. I was like a high-speed data technician. And I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I had a job, I had jobs and stuff and supporting my family. I did. And big part of that, I was doing construction at the first of all that, and loved it. And I help my friend do it when I can these days because I dislike doing it. I like building stuff, but
Huh.
I like working with my hands and getting dirty. I just love it. But yeah, I was working and making a living, supporting myself and my family through other ways, and and it was great. And but even then, people were coming to me like, "Hey," and I was the guy everybody came to, like, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" The secret, like, I got these problems. I'm like, why is everybody telling me this stuff?
Oh,
But I
cute.
know why, because I'm like, oh yeah, well, boom, 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 and it's just like duct tape, a dung beetle, and a coat hanger. There you go, dude. And they're like, oh my god, and it's just so simple, and it makes so
Huh.
much sense that they could instantly like fix their problem or release that energy and start flowing in their life again, saving marriages, saving lives. People were suicidal, getting people off drugs and alcohol, just from their own power, not because I did it, but I showed them a doorway of how to get there. And I always tell people this, like, it's not the tools augment your power, but tools are not the power. People like meditation, but all these things, they're useful and they augment your power. But have you ever seen a saw cut a piece of wood? No, it's a human operating a saw, cutting a piece of wood. Have you
Right.
ever seen a screwdriver screwing a hammer, pound a nail? No, it's a human using the tool, doing the thing. It always comes back to you. It's why I tell people all the time, like, you're the power. And I could tell people this way back, like, 25 plus years ago. And I'm like, you got to understand, like, you're the one doing this stuff. So don't look for some external magic solution that can
Right.
augment you. If you're building a house, a saw is a very good tool to have. If you're fixing a relationship, whatever, listening, a tool for listening, maybe like the magic tile where I have it, I can talk, you have it, you can talk. That's a tool it augments your ability to communicate and to strengthen that. But don't ever give the credence to the tools because it's you doing it. It's always you.
Right. What would be your I just thought of this. What if you had to give your 16-year-old self advice? What would you go back and tell you at that age, knowing what you know now?
Do exactly what you did. It's going to be hell. It's going to be hell a lot of times, but you're going to get through it. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I wouldn't. It's just because every piece of that is woven into the fabric of my experience, which has made it so I can relate to people on every end of the extreme spectrum. I've hung out with people who have billion-dollar businesses, and I've hung out with homeless people and bikers and whatever. I can relate to everybody because I've lived so much vast experience. So every piece of my life is woven into the fabric of who I am and what I am. And because of that, I'm able to, I guess, impact and relate to more people, which makes more people be able to feel seen and heard. And you do that for somebody, just that in of itself is a gift, because then they can see and hear themselves for sometimes the first time in their life. So I would tell the person, like, it's going to be hell, but you're going to be fine.
Right.
Don't ever quit. Don't ever quit on yourself.
Yeah. And just the fact that you think of going through things, and, it could be the worst, darkest day, and you teach these kids, there are going to be those days, but that's your story, right? That's what you're going to help somebody down the road. You're going to tell them that story, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, you relate to me, you get it. Those are the magic moments in life, are those, I always say the contrasts are like we came here to experience the contrast, right? The highs and the lows. And, you want to get to where the middle between the highs and the lows aren't as big, instead of these big valleys and big, the highs and the big mountains and the valleys. But, those valleys, like just even listening to your story and what you've done to change people's lives with those stories, and how you wouldn't change a thing, and who you are to be. I mean, I really believe that this was your purpose before you even turned 12 and started drinking. Like, okay, the little soul in there said, okay, we're going to start drinking now.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go through this big time thing for 2 years. And then I'm going to have this aha moment that I can't live this way. But I see the little writing on this little boy, growing up and realizing his gift. Like, it could be a story, it's a book. I mean, it's a cute, I could see it being a movie.
Yeah, it'd be a great movie.
It
Actually,
would
it
be.
would be
I
a
can
great
see it
movie.
right now. But
Yeah.
I love it. And I love our time and appreciate you. And I feel like you're my friend. It's like you get this connection with someone, like I could be here with you all day long, or I've known you, or even listening to
Yeah.
the last few days that I've been listening and trying to learn about you has been beautiful. I've loved it. And you're a
Thank you.
definite gift to this world and this planet, and you're doing what you're supposed to do. And what a good feeling to be in that place,
Thank you very much. It's very nice.
Yeah, you're living your passion. You're just a white shining light. I love it. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful to have crossed paths with you. This podcast is what moments like this for me are like. That is why I do a podcast, because I get to have these amazing conversations with people like you.
Yeah. Well, that's neat. Thank you so much. That's very nice.
Yeah, I
It's
love
been
it.
fun, actually. I love it. I love doing this. I can do this. I do it all the time, actually.
Oh, funny. Me too. So we can find you on Facebook, Instagram. I've looked it all up. And then
Yep, Facebook, Instagram, and then if you want to hear the whole story, and I actually have a thing where you can get the principle one of the Power Life Principles. It's an audio course with some PDFs and worksheets you can get for free. To that alone has changed people's lives. So let's just give people that, and go to highestenergywins.com. That's where you can get that information, see the whole story, learn about all the Power Life Principles. I talk about that in that video, and it's kind of a cool video. The thumbnail like has me holding a gun. It's like, well, that's dramatic.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but that's a good place to go to learn more about like the backstory of how this came to be, what the principles are, how you can maybe start to apply them in your life to enhance your own life, because that's how we really elevate humanity, is by elevating ourselves.
Yes. Oh, and you do that to an amazing degree.
Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here, Mike. I've
You're
loved
welcome.
it.